Hey, everybody. Welcome back to a new episode on the Soulfull Sound Podcast. And boy, do we have something in store for you today. To celebrate the 100th episode of the Soulfull Sound Podcast, I am getting up close and personal with some distinguished guests. Now, before I introduce them, I just want to say a huge heartfelt thank you to each and every one of you for being a part of our community, for listening and watching these offerings, which are all about growth, healing, and transformation. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I look forward to reconnecting with you all in 2025. Now, on to my distinguished guests. I am joined by the beautiful Leonora Niles, a retired nurse, spiritual leader, often called the soul doctor, inspiration to many, and I am blessed to call her my mother. And I am also joined by the gorgeous Michaela Hunte, who is a psychotherapist and counselor with a background in the creative arts, and I am so blessed to call her my daughter. Woo! Welcome, welcome, guests. Welcome to the podcast. So I'm so excited to have you guys with me. And I say that I've spoken about you both several times in many different contexts. You know, Mom, many have heard me talk about your sayings over the many conversations that we've had, like the soul knows and the rest of you just needs to catch up. And Michaela, you've been up front and center in all of my trainings and behind the scenes in my business. So everyone knows you in a different context as well. And I just feel so honored to have you both be part of this celebration with me. So thank you, thank you, thank you. In this podcast, I like to start all my guests. I like to ask the question, what brought you to where you are now? Now, I know that's a huge question and that can encompass so many things, but whatever you feel called to share, your personal story about what brought you into the work you're doing. So if I start with you, Mom, like the spiritual work and where you are in your life now, talk to us about your story, and then I'll come over to you, Michaela.
Well, my story began from the womb, and I am so happy and blessed to have had you in my womb at some point while God shaped you and molded you, and to be there with you when Michaela was in your womb, shaping and molding her. So this is not just a podcast for me. It's a blessing and it's a privilege. And I am just so out of my mind. But we'll stop at that for now. Just a little about me. I was number 6 of 6 children, so I was the baby. And we were all girls except one. So there were 5 girls and 1 boy. So in the end, so that died when I was 8 and he died suddenly. So it was a shock to me. But however, what that did is held me under an umbrella of the guidance and the upbringing of mostly women. It was my mom, my 4 sisters, and then my aunt came to live with us, and she had a daughter as well. So I had a lot of maternal, fraternal, maternal, but mostly matriarchal. So that has shaped and molded me all my life. So of course, later on, I had to learn about the masculine, which sends you to the ring, through the ringer, as we know. But it was all wonderful, and I am grateful. So what took me on my journey is that as a child, I always was fascinated by 3 things: the clouds, trees, and my dreams. And what that has done for me now is I still watch the clouds every day and watch the formation and watch how they change. And then you see a big, massive cloud, and almost like a puff, you watch it changing and changing. That helped me very much and still does with my thoughts, because the thoughts are so fleeting and we hold on to them and give them power. So I decided to use the clouds as my thoughts. So I would go outside and watch how, oh, this big, huge cloud in the blue sky. And then all of a sudden, something just blows it away and it changes shape. And then it goes away. And then you have more clouds coming. So I have used that as a tool for me to change my thoughts. The tree helped me in looking at how we don't see the growth, although we see things grow. So I love to go and watch my mom put the seed in the ground and then watch the tree, because in those days, in my time of upbringing, everybody was planting. And there was you watch the tree and it grew. You never saw it growing, you just know it was bigger. And that's the inner growth. That's what's happening within the tree and within me. So that also helped me on my journey. And my dreams, I always was having dreams. All sorts. Some were warning dreams, some were prophetic, some were whatever, but dreamer. So they called me beautiful dreamer as a child. However, all those things have shaped me into what I am today.
Beautiful. Well, there's so many nuggets that I'm going to pull from that, for sure. And I know we also have called you the Dream Dictionary for those who come to you to get some understandings into their own dreams. Before I jump into some of those nuggets, over to you, Michaela. Let's hear about where you are and how you got into what you're doing today.
Well, I think for me, it starts from being born and raised in a family where I knew and felt wholeheartedly that I would be supported in any endeavor I chose to take, and that I had the ability to do any endeavor. So when I had an interest and a growing interest in the creative arts, whether that be acting, dancing, singing, I'm lucky enough to have enjoyed many different art forms and not be too bad at them. So it meant that I had this wonderful support, wonderful nurture, and a whole team full of cheerleaders. That meant that when it came to, what am I going to study at this level, at that level, at that level? The obvious was always the arts, because I'm passionate about the arts and had this love and enjoyment. And for a long time, it's the arts that I felt gave me my purpose, or I felt like I was on my path. And then I graduated from university, and there was something that felt different. I had friends and peers going for auditions, trying to find agents, and I just thought, this is really what I want to do. I felt like my time in the arts as a career choice was coming to an end, and it was becoming more about some engaging in creativity as a form of medicine, as just a form of enjoyment. And I think it was around 2020, 2021, so still kind of in the pandemic kind of time, me and my friends did the government careers questionnaire. And the first thing that came up was psychotherapy and counselling. And this is something that has always been something that I thought, I would like to do something like that. And I think growing up, there were loads of things that took my fancy. I'd love to be a doctor. I'd love to be a lawyer. I'd love to be a forensic scientist. I'd love all of this stuff. And I think performing created a world where I could be all those things, experience all those things. And so when I made the decision that I was going to train in psychotherapy and counselling, I have family members who are psychotherapists and psychologists. So I really moved from the creative sphere, which is also very, very prominent in the family, to the psychological sphere, which is also very prominent. So I said, yeah, this feels right. This feels like me. And over that year, many different things happened, and a lot of transformation happened, and a lot of inner work for me happened, and I made very conscious decisions and choices that I wanted to really peel back all my layers, do a nice deep clean, really get to know myself. And just in the beginning process of that, I felt so, and still feel, so liberated, so empowered. And it was then this light bulb moment went off, and I was like, I want to be able to facilitate this for other people. And since then, it's just been, let's go, go, go.
Yes. Beautiful. And yes, you definitely have the example through many ancestral lines of both sides, the creative, singing, dancing, moving, musician, towards the psychotherapy side, the mind and the body and the spirit, kind of that holistic approach. So I will say that none of us, and I think you'd agree with me, Mom, are very surprised at the path that she's chosen so far, at least how she's evolved on it. Right. So I want to pick some nuggets, and I would love to pull from a little bit from both of your shares, which for me is so precious, because while I know these things, hearing you talk about it brings something up, which is really beautiful. So with these nuggets that I'm going to pull from both of your shares, I'd love you both to share on it. So one of the things you said, Mom, I really love, you spoke about the clouds around the thoughts, the trees, and then the dreams. And specifically, it struck me, the phrase that you used, often we see the growth, not the growing. And I think there's something in that is really special. And I wonder let's say that we're coming together here, a generational female line, right? Mother, daughter, we've got a beautiful synergy. Can we talk a little bit about that in the context of family, seeing the growth, but not the growing? And I don't mind who speaks first.
Okay. When I say that, I learn so much from it, because you have a baby and you do all the little things, and all of a sudden you have a larger baby. You don't see them growing. So we know that that is inner growth. The physical is stretching as well, but what's happening on the inner is what's bringing the growth. But they are growing. And all we know is that they went from a bassinet to a crib, to a bed, to a bigger bed, more clothes, bigger clothes. Do we see them growing? No, we don't. We see them, we see the growth, but the growing is within. And that's because, in my mind, God sent us, each one of us, with a purpose and a mission. And all that's decided, He has got the book already written for us. But we have choice. So we come here and He gives us a big blank open book with a pencil. And we have to write our story. He has already written our story. So as He has the story all of that, but we don't know that. We are growing into understanding this world. We have all kinds of influences in our lives, parents, teachers, priests, guardians, etc. And we learn from them. So we start writing our own little stories. So we have our own little fairy tales, so to speak. And then at some point, through challenges and experiences, we have the opportunity to write our story, but we're writing most of what we are feeling, the experiences we're having, And we have to start learning then, and this is what happened to me, start learning that there is more to me than this. And that was a kick up the butt for me. Yeah, get up and find out who you truly are and what has God written in his book for you. And then I started over the years getting tools through prayer, meditation, and so on. And that's how it began for me. So yes, we don't see them growing. We just know the growth is there. And especially when you have children and you have to be buying bigger clothes and bigger clothes because you're feeding them too well, you just realize, wow, they have grown. Yeah.
Beautiful. What do you feel about that, Michaela? Not seeing the growing, but the growth. Anything you want to touch on that?
So it's interesting because I resonate so much with what's been expressed. And I think alongside of that, something that maybe is something that I have developed through being blessed into the family that I've been blessed into, I think that we can, as people, get to a space or a place as individuals where we can see ourselves growing. And what I mean when I say that is, for me, I have grown and developed at a rapid rate over the last couple of years, especially with my training and stuff like that, being in therapy myself. It has been a very fast, rapid development. And through doing that inner work and really getting to know myself, I'm able to understand or notice some of the signs. So I think there are different moments. There may be moments where I can say, oh, I've noticed the growth because this situation that would have elicited this specific response for me in the past no longer elicits that response. But I also have moments where I can recognize, oh, I'm growing. And usually it's the moments where I think, oh, I don't know what's going on with me, but everything is just too much. It's all of and I have these moments where I'm like, I'm not feeling too great. And maybe, you know, in therapy, I'm peeling back some layers that I haven't touched before, or whatever it may be. And I can sit there and go, oh, I'm growing. In a week or so, in a month or so, whenever in the future, I can't wait to see my new growth. I can't wait to see where I'm at. And I think that is definitely something, that ability to notice it within myself and see the growing in real time is definitely a gift that I think is something that comes from the way I was brought up.
Yes, and I think that there is in the way you've both described it, I can hear what resonates with me as well. And I think those landmarks that you're referring to are often the growing pains, which if we come to a physical representation, we can often feel as well. Like all of a sudden, if something in the body's hurting and then you feel a bit taller, you don't necessarily see the growth, but you notice it after the pain, right? After the pain is gone. And you're like, oh, okay, that's what that was in hindsight, or the understanding or perception while going through it. And that's definitely a perception of this is growth. I am growing in this moment because I know that you future pace, I'm not going to be where I am now. So that's a kind of a witnessing of the growing or the process. And I like that you went to the growing pains, because I think often as human beings, we see that as a bad thing, because no one wants to hurt or feel pain or to suffer. Well, let's talk to that a little bit. Let's talk to that. What is important to you individually about going through the hardships, going through the growing pains, the rough patches, and if there's anything that you might want to share personally about what you've experienced and how you overcame it, that would be really cool. you want to come back to you, Mom? Anything you want to share about your thoughts on the pain and then what you might have experienced and overcome?
Well, my mom is not here in body, but definitely she's in my heart and I can feel her presence. But what she has taught me is that, girl, every day is a new day and a new opportunity to change, to make the difference. She has taught me that. So all through my growing pains, and the other thing is the support through the growing. I was always supported. So this is where the ancestral line is so important and so pertinent, because it teaches you and you can pass it on. And I remember days, even though my dad died, I was 8 and we were all, only one sister was working and she had just started as a student nurse. But my mom always, always, always had enough. And it is like a miracle to me that other people in the neighborhood could come and partake of a meal. There was always enough. So the growing pains for me, when I watched my mom having lost her husband in her 40s and raising children, hers, other people's children, feeding the neighborhood. So it's the caring, the sharing, and the compassion that she has instilled in me from baby that I can say that I can experience growth, that I can experience the growing in my own life, and I can see the growth, because then everything changes. The body begins to change. Then you learn how to deal with your emotions. Then the mind, all the thoughts, and that's where the clouds help me, and so on and so forth. So it is passing on all the ancestral teachings, all their experiences. And in my life, I saw women who were widowed, women divorced, women, across the board. All that women experience, I have seen, even if I haven't experienced it myself. And all those things help me with my own growth and transformation.
So would you say that love and compassion and in some way, I guess, being of service, you spoke about sharing, are key elements in overcoming the growing pains?
That's right. Because the growing pains are necessary.
Yeah.
The trees don't cry out, but we do.
Mm.
But what's good is to know that you have a choice. You can either be the victim or the victor. I choose to be the victor. I refuse to be the victim. And the other thing my mom taught me, which helped me with that, is get off that blaming game, girl. You don't blame anybody from what you are experiencing. But it's only later on I discovered for myself that nothing comes to you. It always comes through you. So if it has come through me, it's for my good. Why would I blame you? I will say, thank you, God bless you, bye-bye, or come hug. I choose how I want to experience that. And that helped me with my own growing pains.
Beautiful. Thank you. And for you, Michaela, you did mention it, which is why I asked the question about the growing pains. So when you're in those moments, like what helps you to kind of get through them, and anything you want to share about that?
Well, I think one of the first things was really breaking away from this really linear thinking, having this is an end and that's the start, and they'll all the way over here and they're opposite and all of this. And when I started to think of things like a cycle. And, you know, I'm maybe feeling down, and that doesn't mean that I'm unable to feel up even while feeling down. I think when it came and comes to growing pains, I'm an artiste, so I love the dramatics. And sometimes I think, you know, I think to myself, I'm not feeling great, and I'm just really going to express that, whether it's through gesture, tears, song, whatever it may be. I think when Grandma said about things moving through, it made me smile, because something that I have taken with me throughout my life, and I say this to all of my friends, anyone who listen, and Grandma always used to say this to us: emotions are what? Energy in motion. So I really embody that. I'm feeling this energy, and I'm just going to let that energy do what it needs to do. And maybe I'll go along with it as well, just because I can. And just because, for me personally, I think it really helps me to embrace it and allow it to go through me. And I think with the growing pains, for me as well, there's something around really living and being in this space of gratitude. And I appreciate that's easier said than done, but there's something for me about being able to sit and say, gosh, I feel rotten, but my, oh my, how great I'm going to feel once this is past. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you don't experience the highs without the lows. And I think it's that kind of thinking and that belief that makes these growing pains more manageable and more palpable.
Yeah, beautifully said. I teach energy and motion too, so I guess that was also passed down. That's beautiful. Okay, so what has come up for me, and this is getting a little bit more personal to what you think for you, because we spoke, and you kind of brought in the ancestral lines, Mom. We have a beautiful ancestral line flowing through us here. And while we can be handed down the most beautiful lessons and the things that are incredible, I personally feel in my own growth and my own evolution that, like everything, there is light and shadow. So we've got the light aspects and then the shadow aspects of things that have been handed down. So I'm going to give an example, and then I want you to tell me your experience with your mother in that, Mom. That's grandma for me. I will talk about mine first with you. And Michaela, perhaps you could talk about yours. And maybe when I speak about mine, it might be that we all have it and we can speak to it, but let's just stay open to what wants to emerge. So I had this conversation with my sister. So we have another beautiful female in the line who's not with us today, but in spirit anyway. And we were having a conversation about what I would call like the superwoman syndrome. Right? Now, we grew up seeing you, Mom, do many different things. You worked 2 jobs at some point. We had foster siblings. We had people who needed help always in and out the house. All the neighborhood children were in our house. Somehow there was always food. You know, we don't know how you did everything you did in the 24 hours or the I don't know, 16 hours that you were awake. It was just the example that we got was superwoman. The beautiful thing in that, the light of that is, oh my gosh, I can achieve and do everything I set my mind to. There's enough hours in the day. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. The shadow for me personally, and this is kind of where I want to draw from, and it doesn't have to be this particular one, is that sometimes I would think that I have to do it all, as opposed to I choose to do this because, I mean, obviously it served something in me, but I found now in my balancing of that, and we'll talk about the masculine and feminine, that I'm able to receive more, do less, and still feel fulfilled in the superwoman that I am. So I'm curious to know about the light and shadow experience of that ancestral line, what is handed down through the beautiful experiences and ancestors. So I'll come back to you, Mum, first, and you can either speak to that or your own experience of that in your upbringing.
Yes, in my upbringing, I most definitely saw the superwoman, my mom. And as far as I'm concerned, she remained superwoman until she made her transition, until she could no longer do. But what I admired was when she got to the point where she only wanted, she made choices. She did only what she wanted to and not what she felt she had to do.
Yeah.
So she said at one stage, okay, I've done enough cooking. It's up to you all now. And that was it. Somebody took on the cooking. Somebody took on the laundry. But she loved using her hands like I do. So my hands, using my hands like Michaela used her dance and her singing and her song for therapeutic reasons, I use my hands. So anytime I do fiddly things and I sew or I neaten up or I clean up or I read up and so on, I use the hands and very, very therapeutic. So at my stage now, I still enjoy doing the hands. I have choices now because I have grandchildren that can go to the parents and not to me. I've done my share of that, but I enjoy now participating in looking after the grandchildren and doing things that they like and so on that the parents are too busy to do. When I was guest raising you all, that I was a little too busy to do. But the joy for me now is doing what I want to do and not what I feel I have to. As a parent, there were some things I had to do. Now I don't have to do that. I have to just love my grandchildren, feed them, and the rest is up to the parents. So it is a joy for me to do those things. And as I said, my hands, using my hands all the time, very therapeutic. And the other thing I have done for myself now, which I have had to teach myself to do, and which I'm doing beautifully now, is when you feel like resting, rest. You get continue one step at a time. So I will sleep when I want to sleep. I will run when I want to run. I will go to the market when I feel like going to the market because I love to smell the green, fresh produce in the market in Trinidad, not from the supermarket, and so on and so forth. So I do what I want to do, what I feel like doing, when I feel like doing it, and enjoying it. So I just love the feeling that now I don't have to raise any children.
Yeah.
So
would you say that it was similar to me then, that the shadow was there might have been a time where you did feel like you had to do everything or did choose to do everything, and now you have healed that part that felt like it needed to do all of it all the time? Because I'm speaking about the shadow piece too, and I want to know that shadow piece for you. Is that what you feel that you've overcome?
I've overcome that. I've overcome the shadow piece because I don't feel I have to do anything but look after me. So when I have more time now since it's grandchildren and not children, I have more time now to work on myself. So I'm forever filling up my cup. And when my cup is full and overflowing, I have enough to give everyone and still feel good about myself.
Beautiful.
So I have gone through the shadow parts, and I have known that there were times I was going. And the thing is that you don't even know you're doing it while you're doing it. It's only when you stop and take a little bit of stop. And he says, shoot, I need to look after this body. I need to do this. And then you spend more time. But that's the benefit of the tools that you get throughout the journey. And once you are on a spiritual path, which I'm on, it gives me tools when I'm sleeping. It gives me tools while I'm working. But I always follow the intuition. Well, now more so, I should say, than before. Because when you follow that intuition, you're always right. Because you are now aligning yourself to your spiritual self, your higher self. And the book that's written. When I was writing my own stories, of course, different story. But now I know how to get the balance.
Beautiful. Thank you. All right, Michaela, shadow and light. Tell us about that for you.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you noticed, but my head was when you spoke about this kind of superwoman complex. I'm not sure the word you use. I'm not sure.
I said syndrome, but I mean complex either.
Complex,
I don't know, whatever.
But yes, I heavily relate. And I think it's actually not until hearing Grandma speak that I realized that me personally, I am coming out of a phase of not wholeheartedly trusting my intuition. And what I mean when I say that, and it feels strange to say this because I have a very strong relationship with my intuition, I always have. But there were always moments where a voice would pop up. My intuition, it's audible for me. I can hear my intuition as well as feeling a kind of buzz in my solar plexus area. But there are many times where my intuition says something and I doubt it and I kind of dampen it and ignore it. And this is something that I've been heavily aware of, especially in the last, year or so that I've been trying to work on. And I too have been someone who feels or plays the role of I can do it all. I need to do it all. I can't rely on anyone else to do it the way I would like it done. And I think back in times where maybe I was feeling, burnt out in a way, because I was just trying to do everything, getting upset when I wasn't getting the support I felt like I needed to be able to do everything, but not realizing that I wasn't actually letting go and allowing my partner to step in and support me in doing things. And I realize also, especially now, that how important rest is. Mm-hmm. And I find myself now really allowing myself to rest and listen to what my body is telling me. And also, it goes back to kindness and compassion and having that kindness and compassion for myself and going, oh, actually, I know I said that I wanted to get this thing done today, but I'm actually feeling a bit under the weather, so I'm not going to do it. And that's okay. It doesn't say anything about me that I haven't got that thing done, like I said. It doesn't, the world is not going to end because I decided to get this thing done at a later time. And I think there is definitely, in the shadow of it all, something around showing and proving to the world that I am capable, that I am valuable, and that I am worthy. And I think that, for me at least, was wrapped up in the I've got to do everything and be everywhere and be able to do all of these things on my own and be able to do it even for other people. And ironically, going into psychotherapy and counselling, you would think it would kind of further push me into that being there for everyone else and really feeling like I need to put others above my own needs. But actually the opposite has happened, because I'm so much more boundaried and feel comfortable in establishing those boundaries and saying, nah, it's not a bit of me today, and that's okay. And I don't need to feel like, oh, what's this person going to think of me if I do something for myself instead of doing something for them? And I was often doing things for other people at the detriment of my own health and well-being. And it's nice to sit and speak about this, because I can recognize further how much I've grown and how far away I am from that kind of very shadowy expression of this superwoman do it all. And of course, I think some of that is what we pick up from society, be your own boss, you can have it all, you can, be a mum, girl boss, go to work, also do this, you can do it all. Don't let anyone tell you can't do it all. And then you're like, I don't like doing it all.
Yeah, and again, that's kind of where the choice comes in, where it's not about the should do based on external or internal expectation or old patterns of conditioning, but I choose to do this because it serves me and others. It's so important, and I know we've all learned this. I'm speaking to both of you who've heard this through mom, through me, through you, and right back around, how important it is to recognize the reflections that we are. So we need to love ourselves, and then we can love others. We need to be compassionate with ourselves, and we can be compassionate with others. But I think as human beings, we often feel like it's an external and outside in job when we know better now. I want to say I have faith in humanity that we know better now, that it's an inside out approach, right? So I think that's really, really beautiful. Now, I want to backtrack to something that you said, Mum, because it's really fascinating to me, and I want to kind of delve a bit deeper. So see if we can follow this thread, and then I want your take on it as well, Michaela. So you spoke about the tools that we have available to us. And when you spoke about choice and life, you spoke about being, that I think you said God has already written the book. So we have the plan, or the divine plan. But then we have choice. So we have our blank canvas in this experience of life, and we can take that pencil and write our own story. So my question and thought is, what is the tool that the pencil represents in writing our own story? One. And the secondary, and you can answer both or one at a time, is what would be the glasses that would allow us to see what's already written so we don't have to pick up the pencil?
Okay.
That makes sense? Okay.
Of course, because on my own journey, I have found that it is making one step at a time. Sometimes we get carried away when we are exposed to certain tools for growth and so on. What I have learned is that sometimes you have the tools and they just sit there and they rust because you don't use them. But they're there. But the ego takes you into that spin that Michaela had spoken of, about trying to do this, go to work, look after this, and so on and so on and so forth. So the ego is very distracted. It wants to take you away from using the tools. So then we come up with all the excuses why we're leaving them there on tail. But I have learned it's one step at a time. Then you want to be a carpenter, you have hammer, nails, wood, and you have the tools available. So you start using the tools, then you pound your finger, piece of wood falls on your foot, a nail pricks you and you're crying and you drop all the tools. Then you have another choice. The other choice is use the tools wisely. Because there are times we get these tools and the ego knows, that's the thing. The ego knows exactly all your little frailties and weaknesses. And it says, put that one there and put that one there. So this is why it's so important to go into your practices of meditation and also following your intuition. Because if you listen to the ego, you will think you're using all these tools beautifully and correctly and so on until you're drowning. And you say, help, help, help. But thank goodness there's always help. But only to say that we have the tools. We get them when we are ready for them. But what is your choice? Are you going to use them, put them away until whenever? Or are you going to take the tools and learn day by day that, yes, you're going to cry a little bit because your finger got hammered with the hammer, the nail stuck you and the plank fell on your foot and you can't walk for days. Of course, we know those experiences. But then you get up and you say, I'm going to be a carpenter. So I'm gonna, when my foot, I could go on my foot now, I can do this now, my finger is healed, I am ready. You go back at it, and one day you're supplying the entire neighborhood and then the nation with all the cabinets, all the housing built in this and built in that, and you're a multimillionaire. And not necessarily just manifestation of wealth, but manifestation of who you are, who you truly are. So that's how I learned, one step at a time. I cried many times when the hammer hit me on my finger. Of course, I said, okay, like Michaela said earlier, okay. So it hurts, big deal. So wait until it heals and you go back at it. And you go back at it because this journey is lifetime, eternal. So whether you learn it all today or next year or whether whatever time. But now as we know with technology, you can learn everything at a finger touch. I am learning that, yeah, it has brought me to a point where I don't have to worry about anything. God has written my story. I am his miracle. I'm not looking for miracles outside of me anymore. I used to pray for a miracle. And I pray for this miracle. I am his miracle. So I'm going to find all the miracles I need when I need them because they are within. And that story is already done.
Beautiful. Michaela, what's the pencil? What are the glasses?
So for me, the glasses, maybe not glasses, they're just a blindfold. It's a blindfold and you have to learn to trust that you aren't going to be able to see. And that's fine. That's okay. Maybe you've got someone, if you're walking around, you've got someone you trust that's holding you and you know that they're not going to let any harm come to you. That's kind of actually perfect when I think about it and how I experience this trust and understanding that it's already written. And it is this experience of like, oh, I don't know what's coming. I can't really see, but I've got someone with me who's going to guide me, who I know is not going to let harm come to me. I'm not going to be walking into any walls. It doesn't matter that I can't see. I'm held, I'm supported, I have my guides. And yes. I think, so for me, you'll never, I have a sense of what is written, but that's just a sense. I don't think I'll ever know truly what is written, but it's being okay with that and being able to sit with the unknown and the uncertainty, which easier said than done. I know that for sure. But yes. I think for me, especially in the recent months, there has been a shift. And the shift is that in the past, I may have said, yes, I wholeheartedly trust in the universe that all good will happen. All that happens is for my highest good. And it's not until I'm getting to this point and I can reflect back that I can go, oh no, girl, you still had some doubts. Because now I feel wholeheartedly, deeply in it and believing it and trusting that I don't really know, but I don't need to know.
Yeah.
I don't need to know because it's all going to work out for me. So why do I care how it happens? I just need to know and trust that it's going to work out for me. And yeah, so the glasses are, it's a blindfold or blacked out glasses. You can't see anything.
Beautiful. I think it's so interesting how many ways we can say similar things, and that obviously I know we grew up together in our family in many different ways, and I think that that's really a beautiful way, because I would say that for me the idea of the glasses, and I like the blindfold, either or, that it is a surrender and a faith and a trust, because that divine plan is not one that you're going to just open the book and go, okay, this is next, this is next, this is next, because then we don't get the experience of picking up the pencil. And for me, the pencil is will, it is purpose, it is life experiencing itself. And I think that it's an extension of who we are, being expressed on the page. So there's so many beautiful ways of looking at it. And I love that you use kind of one step at a time, Mom. As a sound healer, I often say in my community, just keep putting one sound in front of the other. One sound at a time, because we are these sonic beings, we take these steps. And I think that's so important. Oh, so much yummy stuff. And we're going to have a part 2, because there's so many things I want to ask, and there's just not enough time in the day to bring it all out, but we will get there. I do want to ask a question about our family, because we're blessed we can share a lot with our community, but we're blessed to be mother and daughter here in this setting. And I would love to know if you could use one word, let's say just choose one word to describe our family dynamic. That can be as far in the ancestral line or as down like in terms of age as you want to go. If you could choose one word, what would that be to describe our family, and why would you choose it? You can take a moment, and then when you're ready, answer.
Well, I'm going to say
right, go for it, Mom. You go, and then we'll come back to Michaela.
So if I think about my family throughout the years, from my grandma to my mom and down, I would say support. We've always supported each other throughout, regardless, and without judgment. And that's what I like, the support, and support in all ways, in every angle. So that's the one word I would use, support.
Beautiful. What about you, Michaela?
Well, same, but different. But the first thing that came to my mind was holding, held, hold. And it's the same. I just feel, and I think when I look back on my life and my childhood, that's also the thing that comes up the most, is always feeling so held, no matter what, knowing that I'm held, and that all I have to do is ask and reach out if I need a bit more holding, if there's something specific I need held. But there is this, I keep to this gathering of the arms. I feel, held.
Yes. It's so beautiful, because I would have said the same word, and we never had asked each other this question before, but I would have said, I was toying between supported and connected. And I think you need to have both anyway. But the support for me has always been, no matter who I go to, when I go to, how I go to, there is a level of, how can I help? How can I support? And that is something that I feel I would have certainly desired to pass down to my children. So you reflecting that is precious because it's what I experienced and experienced. So how interesting is that? That question just popped up, and then I realized, hang on, we're all saying the same thing. So that's quite interesting. Maybe we need to do a survey in the greater family and see how many people come back with that before they watch the podcast, before they watch it.
Yeah.
So I have another question, and this is because personally, as I use the word connected, personally, I find I'm not talking about the entire family ancestrally now. I'm talking about here, right here, you, Michaela, you, Mom, Michaela. I find that, and I'm so honored and blessed. I mean, you know this, but I'm still going to acknowledge it here, how blessed I feel and privileged I feel to have such a beautifully deeply connected, open and honest relationship with you both. And I know you feel the same, and you might use other words. I would be curious as to your thoughts on what it takes to cultivate something like that. What is the key to creating this bond and this deep connection between mother and daughter? Because there are a lot of people who are going to be listening to this who I hope will feel, and I trust will feel, this beautiful frequency that we're emitting here together. And not everyone has that with their a certain chosen or biological parent and child, or not necessarily even biological, but I mean from that perspective, ancestrally connected. And I'm just curious your thoughts on that, so that if there are any nuggets that someone listening and think, oh, I would have loved to or would love to develop or cultivate that relationship with mom or daughter, etc., or even sister, what would some of those tips or thoughts be for you? Come back to you, Mom, so then we can keep going full circle.
Yeah, for me, it is the non-blaming, because most of the times when we don't get on with siblings, parents, and so on, it's about blaming them for something we are experiencing, and it's not my fault, it's your fault. And I see that a lot with especially mother-daughter relationships. And we have to stop that blaming. And so the one word I would use is love. And I would add compassion, because look at some of the tools our parents had that we don't know anything about because we are on a whole different age and stage and growth. And we have so much more available to us. We have got to stop the blame game. Stop blaming the parents, stop blaming your siblings, stop blaming. It's not about that. It's about how can I love more? And love, the love I'm talking about is not running up to people and hugging them and kissing them and telling them how much you love them. I'm talking about a deeper love of understanding that they had the tools that they had, and they used them under conditions that they had, and it was not always pleasant. So you look at it now and you say, you know, that womb held me. That womb cherished and nurtured me until it put me expelled me into this world. I know that I can heal this. You don't even have to go to your mother. You can just sit back, use the tools, and say, Mom, I love you. I forgive you. I'm not blaming you, friend. But until I'm ready to do my own healing, the next step is healing us. So we have to work with ourselves, because we're carrying stuff. And I know, as my mom says, well, go and put down that now. It's too heavy. We have a new day. Let's put it away. It's too heavy. We don't need to carry all that from years gone by, who said and who did and who what. Drop it. Leave it alone. It belongs in the past. That's the cloud that looked so ominous earlier on that has just disappeared. And we still holding on to these things? No. Watch the clouds. Watch them move. Watch them take away that shape and form that they had a few minutes ago, not yesterday, a few minutes ago. And when I sit and I watch it and I say, my God, you had looked like this just now. Now look at you, you're just a puff. That's what we have to do. See those old experiences as puffs of puffs that have left our lives. And now we are breathing in something new. We are shaping clouds now. We are determining what kind of thoughts we're having and so on and so forth. So let us do it together. Support people that we know who are having issues with mother and drop the blame game and let's move on. That cloud is gone. And forgiving ourselves as much as forgiving them, because they could only do what they knew at the time and use the tools that they had at the time. So very important.
Beautiful. What about you, Michaela? What do you think it takes to cultivate this deeply connected, open, honest type of relationship that we have here?
We've said it so much throughout already, but it starts within.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all cultivate and choose to cultivate and continue to cultivate that type of relationship with ourselves. And I'm lucky enough to have been able to start that cultivation at a very early age. But I think the beauty of our bond and our ability to be honest and open comes from our ability to do that with ourselves, and also the want to do that. You have to want, you need to want it for yourself. And no one else can bring that for you. No one else can do that for you. And like Grandma said, it's easier said than done to leave blame in the past. But that's the point. You have to want to be able to do that. And it's not all of this inner work and stuff like that. I know it feels easy to just say, oh yeah, if it's this, you do this, you do that. And I know for me, part of that is because, look who my family are. But it is difficult. It's hard work. And things, especially when you start doing the inner work, they are going to feel like they're getting worse before they get better. But it's perseverance, and it's the conscious choice that you need to decide for yourself and make for yourself in going, okay, these are the relationships I want. How can I cultivate those relationships with other people without having cultivated that with myself? I need to know. It's like, if I'm going to set out on a journey and I'm going to say, right, I'm going to tell you how to get to X, Y, and Z, but I haven't learned how to get to X, Y, and Z myself, it's incongruent. Nothing's going to happen. There's not going to have that kind of shift in that movement. So it really is about the fact that we've been able to cultivate such compassion, honesty, openness, introspection with ourselves, that we can then, it spills out of us and we're able to do that with each other. Because at first you need to be able to relate to yourself with compassion, with kindness, with love, with light. And once you're able to relate to yourself that way, it becomes so much easier to relate to others that way.
Beautiful. Back to the inside out approach. And I like to combine what you said with the fact that we all use the word support. One of the things that I've said many times in this podcast, and I probably have said it many times in my sharings, my teachings, about one of the things that I learned from my mother that for me was crucial in passing down to my children. And that is to take responsibility for yourself. Know when it's your shit and when it's not. And when it is, do what you have to do to work through and to heal and to transform. And when it's not, leave it alone. It's not yours. We often take on other people's stuff, but when we realize that's not mine, it's that heaviness that you can put down. It's the, I don't need to blame other people because I'll take responsibility for how I feel and how I show up. Coupled with the desire, as you say, Michaela, to want this. I desire a deep connection, whether I have it or not. I desire a deep connection with my daughter, my mother, my sibling, whoever, let's say mother, daughter in this context. How can I cultivate that? That's curiosity. That's opening to possibility. And if you bring the, I can be responsible for my part in it, because you can't make someone else want that relationship with you. You can only be responsible for your part in choosing to. Then how can you then come together collectively to create that? There's that support piece again. Because you and we've both ways, and in all three of us have had the hard conversations too. It's not all like rainbows and butterflies. I would go to my mom and say, this is what I'm feeling, even if it's hard. You've come to me, we've had healing conversations about things. It's not always easy to hear it, but the trust that you're coming from a place of, I want to cultivate a deep, open, honest relationship with you, Mom, and I want the same. That makes those choices and those movements so much easier. It's the kind of grease in the hinges of the door. So while they may creak from time to time, we know that there is a way for us to oil them so that we can open and see what's possible and create and design what's possible. And I'm so grateful, obviously, that I have that with both of you. And so want to honor you both. I feel like we definitely want to have a part two. I know this is going to happen at some point. But I just want to really honor both of you for being, you know, my inner circle, for being my mother, my daughter, for being two of the most important of many, of course, in the family. You are everything and more. And I also want to celebrate all the work that you're doing in the world individually and us collectively to help others navigate life with better tools and deeper understanding of who they are, and just helping people to be their best selves through your spiritual work and your beautiful self, Mom, through your psychotherapy, counseling, and your beautiful self, Michaela. I am so grateful to be able to bring us together in this sacred space and share this with my community, the world, and whoever needs to hear it. So I just want to say thank you both for joining me today. I'm so grateful. And I like to end all of my podcast episodes with the same question. And that is, what is your soulful sound to the world? A prayer or desire that you wish upon the world right now? Over to you, Mom.
Peace, love, compassion. I mean, the turbulence can be unnerving, so I try not to tune into it, but it's all around you, so you can't help sometimes. And I'm thinking, yeah, this is a massive cycle that's happening now, and we are privileged to be part of this cycle and doing the work we're doing. So I am grateful. I'm grateful that you even thought this up, because this would never have happened. So that tells you about the mother and the daughter because I would never have thought this. But I'm so grateful now that we can sit here together and express. And it's beautiful. And to heal the world is healing me first. Michaela said it. Yep, there's got to be a readiness. And there's also, you must really want it. Because when the hammer pounds that thumb, if you don't want it, you're going to drop them tools and go about your business. But when it hits my thumb, I said, I've got to go about my Father's business. And that's what makes it good for me. It makes me open and ready to recognize what God sent me here to do, what is my purpose, what I can do about it, and just know that you want me to do it. I'm open to it. You got my back, so I'm good. I'm grateful. So I'm going to continue to send the peace and the love and the light to the world and not tune into the fears, because the fears can be very, very debilitating sometimes. So my tune in is, agents will say, God, this is your world, come get it. Because I know there's this beautiful presence that's around us, that's in the world, and that's going to heal the world. So I want to sit back, wait for my instructions, and as I said, one step at a time. Where do you want me next, Lord? And the rest is not my business. It's God's business.
Beautiful, beautiful prayer. Thank you, Michaela.
Well, I was going to say compassion and love and peace too. So all on the same page there. I think one of my desires for the world is that for people to really understand that we are meaning makers, and to really understand how much the way we disclose ourselves in the world impacts what we notice and what we receive. And just to be kind to ourselves, because I think we've said it again and again, all starts inwardly, but I see, my friends, or even overhear conversations, and whether it be on the tube or, looking at online and stuff like that. And I'm thinking to myself very consistently, gosh, you're so harsh on yourself, so critical of yourself. Where's the kindness? Where's the compassion? Where's the love? And I think that is something that's really missing, or I find is missing in today's society, is that we're not showing ourselves kindness. And so my desire for the world is for us to be kinder to ourselves, so that we can in turn be kinder to others, but also to recognize that we are powerful meaning makers, and we are equally involved in how we perceive the world as the world is in the way it shows up for us.
Beautiful. Michaela, aka my gorgeous daughter, Leonora, aka my beautiful mom, my beautiful mother. Thank you both for your love, your compassion, your support in all ways, always. And we'll see you all again soon. So much love to you both.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Your support, your comments, and everything is truly incredible. And we're only at the beginning of this awesome journey together. If you love this episode, hit that like and subscribe button, and make sure to check out our other episodes. Thanks so much for being with us today. Sending you love, healing, and sound wherever you are.